All right, so did some research. You were Sergeant Marine Corps,
Yeah.
correct? Well, first, obviously, thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
I mean,
Thanks for the drinks. You bought me a little dose. Appreciate it.
For sure. From what I've read and statistics out there, over 200,000 service members transition out of the military every single year. And I feel like there's a big struggle in like finding your footing. And you've obviously not only have found your footing, but it seems like you're very successful. You're a devoted father, husband, on your property management company, you're fit, you look great. And then, the Tampa RIA, you're a part of it as well. What do you think kind of brought you to be able to do what you're doing now? And like, how did you find success? How'd you get here?
Yeah, that's good, man. No, I appreciate the kind of words. There's a lot there. And I mean, if I think about just trying to like simplify it the most is, I think it goes to sort of the upbringing I had, but sort of like the delayed gratification of stuff that I was doing. So even like just going even all the way back to just before the military, because I went in right after high school and, served in the Marines for 6 years and then got out in 2015. I think it was the ability to just like prepare before the opportunity. I know there's like some famous quotes and stuff around that, but it was just really like how I operate now. And then was, I'd been reading books while I was in, knowing that I didn't want to stay in long term, because like in the military, it was sort of that thought of, people get promoted, but it's not always based on necessarily how good they are, right, at their job. And so I knew I didn't want to be in there long term. So I was always preparing to get into sort of real estate. I'd heard that like that was a great way to possibly create wealth. Yeah. And so I mean, I just, books and everything, podcasts, YouTube, and even when I was at work and I had some spare time, just through all that time, kind of just thinking through like, let me prepare myself now. So like, I had got my bachelor's while I was in, which a lot of people just don't do it while they're even in. They just wait till they get out, so waste a bunch of time. And I studied for my real estate test. So as soon as I got out, I took the test in Florida.
Got it.
So I did all the study and all the courses, I passed everything before I even got out. So it was just always kind of thinking ahead, next step, and just preparing before like the opportunity came along. And I think just the way I was raised was just a very sort of like conservative approach to stuff.
Sure.
And but really just relying on a lot of that education while I was mostly overseas that entire time, which is a little unusual.
How'd you balance that?
It was, man, I was kind of in a silo, man. You have the guys that you're there with, but they don't always think the same. Most of the time you're around like, at that age you're like, what, 18, 19, 20, and it's like, I just had I think a more mature mentality, a little bit on upbringing, but then like responsibility early on in the military, which I think can apply to any branch, but especially at the end I was doing security at U.S. embassies, and so it was basically like us and then like the ambassador of that country for the U.S. And so a very short chain of command and a lot of responsibility, because you're in charge of all the personnel on the embassy, sort of grounds, and then like, sensitive information. So like if there was a terrorist attack or whatever, like you're the one responding. Like Benghazi would have been what we would have responded to.
Yeah.
And just like that amount of responsibility at like 20, 21, 22, I think just like really ramped up the ability to like just mature faster, have a little bit better vision of what you want to do, and then you sort of realize your skills. And I sort of realized early on that I wasn't good at one MOS, so I transitioned. I think just that self-awareness, like, dude, I kind of suck at this, but like I'm like good at like doing stuff, but like I don't really excel. And so I switched, and then I did really good at that. So I think just having a little bit of self-awareness, like where you're really good at operating, and finding that passionate sort of piece about it. And I've been in jobs where I was probably not like a great employee because I didn't enjoy it.
Sure.
But it's like even after getting out of the military, I had like part-time stuff. I was trying to get my feet going, like did Uber at nights, did like part-time security. And I was like, man, I just like don't really enjoy it, and I know that I'm not performing high because I don't. So that's why I really kind of realized that it's so important. Like even after having 6 years of discipline, like really excelling in the military, coming out and like just feeling almost like a crappy civilian, like in that job.
Sure.
I was like, man, it just really dawned that it's like so important to have purpose and be passionate about what you're doing, and to really like elevate you to the kind of like the skill level that you're at. So just a lot of different inputs from, I think, just other mentor stuff that as soon as I got out, I was also looking for like a men's group to get attached to.
Okay.
And different networking opportunities like the RIAs and then just like the Christian businessmen groups that I've sort of been involved with, was like looking for other people that were doing business sort of at scale that I could learn from.
Yeah.
So in a lot of those groups, even now I'm like at least 10 years younger than probably most people in there. They have these huge businesses. So I've always just enjoyed being around older people too, like just that sort of wisdom piece of it. So kind of long rant, but there's just a lot of things that start to build on themselves, and just being kind of really transparent and like vulnerable, and like not here to kind of impress anybody. Yeah. I think people like really relate to that, and then they want to help you succeed. So bring opportunities around you when they realize, especially in real estate, you know, it could be like kind of like flashy thing. Like who's really real, who's really doing deals. It's very easy to sort of like have a smoke screen if you want it to be there.
Yeah. And who's got a Lambo but lives in an apartment.
There's some names we could talk about. But it's like over time with people in the industry especially, they start to realize like who's really around. And I think that just speaks to people wanting to either partner with you or bring you in on opportunities, because you sort of just, you know, you still have like a good, you know, good last name, good name, good brand or whatever. So kind of a lot of things that play into it, but
well, a lot to unpack there. How did you find when you were in the military? I'm always like curious about the guys who are able to do the service but then also get their degree. Like what did that day to day look like? How did you focus on both?
So I
always like when I think of people overseas, I'm like, all right, like their head must be on a swivel at all times. Like I'm just curious how you can like study, but also be in what I assume war zone. But I'm not in.
When I went, I was fortunate to. So I went straight over to Japan to the Air Wing. So I was an aviation electrician, and so, you know, I had sort of set schedule. Never was. So when you go over there, you don't normally get deployed to like Middle East because you're sort of there in case like Korea does something crazy, right? So they kind of keep you siloed over here while you're in kind of that area. And so just like pretty set schedule, but then just having the discipline after hours, like just stick to the craft of what you're trying to really do. And I had my personal training certification for a while I was in, and just really dedicating that time to like what was really purposeful, because so many people like just go in and they kind of just, I don't know, just like anybody else in the job, really just not doing the extra stuff after hours. It's like now it's like if you have a 9 to 5, it's like really to get ahead, you gotta, you know, it's after hours, right?
It's like 5 to 9 or whatever, you know, whatever the code is.
And just kind of realizing that structure of what I wanted to kind of move away from, or where those skill sets would sort of go to. And that's where like I get excited when I see guys that I served with that like were able to get out and make a good transition. And I just think there's so many, it can get so comfortable to just stay in, especially if you have kids. I could imagine like the dependency, like sort of like the income,
insurance and all that stuff.
It's real, like, and it's real money when you factor all that stuff in. But I'm like, man, there's so many like high talent people, and like, man, if you could have just left the comfort of the military, like you'd probably just be like just totally like doing your thing. And so I think that sometimes that comfort level just keeps us pulled back a little bit. But it was just kind of all around that planning for just the next step, like, because I knew just early on that it wasn't something I was going to do long term. And there's so many valuable skills that you sort of get while you're in. But I'm like, they're already paying for it. Why don't I just do it while I'm in versus wait till I get out? Like, it just seems such a basic concept. I know people that just wait to go till I get out. And I'm like, dude, why? And of course, it'll help the transition if you have a little bit more education, maybe depending on what you wanted to do. But it's to me, it just seemed like a no-brainer. It's like, you know, it just chip away at it a little bit, because it was all online too. So it was like I did all the studying online, and it's just that little thing, just chipping away. And then you don't feel pressure like last minute deadlines. And even how I work today is just like you chip at it a little bit at a time. And it's like over 2 or 3 years where you just spend a couple hours a week studying or doing something. I was literally only taking, I think, one class at a time. So it's just like super basic, just that minimum, 1% just adds up over time.
It's crazy. I feel like as entrepreneurs, I was thinking about this morning, it's so hard. You feel like there's so many things to do, and it results in like you not doing anything because you're doing things that like, there's so much, like I call a lot of, I refer to a lot of things as chaos. And I think Steve Jobs referred to it as noise. There's so many distractions and stuff like that, and there's so many things that you feel like you need to do. There's so many like new softwares or different strategies within your business, and when you are testing things all the time and not like just being consistent about attacking one method of making money or one tactic within your business, like you just don't go anywhere. It's like just kind of rowing with one paddle. So that's cool though that you were able to do that, because I think a lot of people And I feel like I can't say too much because I wasn't in the military, so
Yeah.
I don't get to, my judgment can only be so far, but like
Sure.
I have met a lot of people who like they went into the military and like it was like frontline stuff,
Yeah.
and then they didn't take advantage of the free time that they had, and then they come
Yeah.
out and then they're struggling, and I feel bad,
Yeah.
because then they're lost and like
Yeah.
then they go down a path that you don't want for anyone. So,
Right. Yeah, it's tough to really. It's something that, especially just as entrepreneurs, you always want to feel like you're making forward momentum, and so it's a constant thing that you're having to do to analyze like what opportunities are really worth pursuing, what really align with like what we're doing as a business strategy. And over the years, there's been stuff that we've tested, like we've had mortgage company at one point, we were doing hard money lending and transactional funding, and like we had a JV with some people that didn't work out, and it's like sometimes it's just timing of the market where some of that stuff doesn't work, but it's like it's tough because you want to have your lane but keep your sort of mind open to other like verticals and stuff that might play a part. And I think it's just, have you really one thing that I've been always, and I'm always going, this is like a constant thing, whether it's daily, weekly, you're kind of just always really evaluating like the teams that we're managing, or our employees, are we still sort of doing the right approach? And it's like the planning piece, which I'm like kind of in the middle of now, just the next quarter, next year, kind of looking at to really decide what the vision is up front, and that helps allow them the way sort of guide as a filter. Like, is it the right, maybe it's something I want to do, but I need to park it on the shelf for like 12 months or like for a little bit of time, or like these kind of things need to work out. And I think a slower approach is for me has worked well over the years. Now it's like been like 10 years since I've been out. Things that didn't work, things that I tried, and the market cycles, just being realistic, can sort of dictate some of that. But it's like the home base foundation's got to be really strong before you're sort of really pursuing some of the other things, and just having good counsel, wise counsel, people to bounce the ideas off of, like, is this the right time? Is this the right move? Have we fully exploited like the avenue we're already in before we do a second location, or like just like advertising we were talking about before the show is like, have we started with the simplest, highest ROI kind of thing, and then from like an asset standpoint is like, for us that are investors, is like, the opportunities that we're in, are they still producing the right returns? Or do we need like restructure? Do we need to change, the business, or the investments? Do they need to change?
Sure.
Is there opportunity costs and all these things? So you're kind of looking at it like from the investment standpoint, but then like the business standpoint, and that sort of also funnels into like the software that you're using, and making sure is like, is this just a new thing because like it's exciting, or is like what? So we're going through some transition on some software right now where I'll be able to consolidate a few into one, and but it's like you gotta be very thoughtful about it, and then what scale is realistic to like roll it out, and then further downstream like effects of your team that deals with all these different changes of like us as entrepreneurs being like, oh, let's do this. Or you go to a conference, bro, you come back with like a whole notebook of stuff, and they're like,
your team's like, what are you doing?
15 new initiatives. So I think it just comes back down to the planning piece of it, and some people work with business coaches and stuff, but it's like that helps drive a little bit of the funnel. I think to sort of get clarity on if it's the right priority, is it the right time, and does it really fit with it? And I feel like you always got to have like one like golden egg of a business model that's like really cranks, so that if you have not only the financial capability to potentially try something new, but it's like that's just the engine that runs, that really drives the revenue, that can like explore other things. And that's, for me, that's the property management company, where it's like every month they get paid, like clockwork. We get paid before the owners get paid, the way the billing cycles are, and so it's like I have no outstanding receivables really, and so, or payables, whatever it is, and I'm not waiting on cash. So that just really drives like opportunity to test other things, or roll some money over here, do this or do that.
There's got to be a level of relief there too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Well, that's why I kind of transitioned to the management stuff. Is like the model of like when I first got out, just doing real estate agent sales. Is what I started with Keller Williams before we opened the brokerage, and it was just that inconsistency to be able to like plan properly. Like the deal flow and the commissions. And I'm like, do I need something predictable that I can really forecast, and then that'll help me expand. And again, it just kind of comes back to that planning piece, and just really having what's important for lifestyle for you, for now that like a family of 3 kids, mostly under 5, is like, is the wife on board with it? Like what's that look like? I was super fortunate. Met my wife when she's from the Dominican Republic, so I was stationed in Haiti for a little over a year, and they're on the same island, and we met there, and like she already had a business there, so she left, you know, family, everything had to come here, and you know, having like $500 to my name when we first, you know, basically within the first few months of getting out after you buy the car, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And like, never to this day has she ever brought up like money as an issue of like contention, right?
Yeah.
So having the right partner, if you are like sort of merged with somebody or like dating somebody that believes in what you're doing, that's at least not talking down, even if they're sort of like neutral, like I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not going to say a negative thing, like
Little
sort of
skeptical,
discouraged,
cautious.
Yeah, and so
caution.
like so important. That was just such a big piece because for some period in the first few years, you know, once she was able to work, like we relied on her income, and then at some point it flipped. So that was just such a big piece, was having like the just positive reinforcement and the risk taking of like being on your own. And I could have got out and probably made 100 to 200 grand as like a private contractor overseas, for like, you know, almost tax exempt or just like making a lot of money really young. But it's like it just would have delayed the inevitable of having to come back and like really do something in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so it was an attractive thing. I almost signed a contract to go do some stuff in Kuwait, and it was just like, it just wasn't. I just knew if I took it, I was going to get sucked into that comfort zone, which was like why I wanted to get in the military. Like I had to like burn the ship, I guess you could say, and just do something different. But yeah. So sorry, a long rant to the original question, but yeah, it just has been a lot of consistent planning over time that's been able to get us kind of where we're at. And but it's a constant thing, dude. Every day I'm like, are we most utilizing our team capacity, the leverage that they have, you know, the way that we're running stuff to get the most time savings on us, and then does it align with what we want as a business? Because then the business can just become a job and something that you kind of hate doing, and it takes the passion away from why you started it in the first place. Yeah,
for sure. I feel like that's definitely a battle with most entrepreneurs, is like, how do I get this business to not be a job for me, you know?
And there's seasons, and it's okay to know, man, I'm in a season. Like we got this property, we just had an appraisal on it, and I'm like, we're supposed to close next week, and I'm like,
you guys are buying it?
No, we own it, and I'm like, we are getting crushed on this one. Like,
Gotcha.
This has been such a
appraisals have been tough recently.
Yeah, especially in Florida. And so it's just one of those things where like, or if it's like with spouse, right? It's like, you know, you go through varying schedules, like, and so sometimes you have to know like people's response to stuff could be related to how they are interpreting their perception of what's happening around them. So whether it's business partners or your employees, or, you know, staying in tune with, you know, spouses, you know, sometimes their reactions to stuff is, you just have to have some awareness that it's like, okay, it's they're reacting this way because it's kind of like there's this disturbance over here that's sort of impacting the home or in the business environment. Like, you know, they're going through something personally that's feeding over to the business. So you just have to, you know, really kind of approach it, I think, with a lot of grace and just understanding that people are going to go through stuff, and life sort of happens. And so sometimes it's just like, all right, I know this kind of sucks, but like, it can't suck forever.
That's true. Hopefully
sometimes you got to change, like, at some point.
Yeah.
So, which is tough, you know. Last year we had some slow stuff where I'm like, man, we lost a big client that ended up coming back, but it was like 30-40% of our business at the time. And,
oh, wow.
And then that forced us to restructure, way more profitable now at the same size that we were sort of before they left. And it was just tough because like slow season, you sort of feel like you're taking a big bunch of steps back. And it was just like that sort of like, just kind of that God moment where you're just like, you just kind of got to sit and wait. You just got to be patient.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard when you're wanting to feel like you're progressing. Maybe you see other people doing it too, and you just know it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm in this season, but I'm doing all the right things. So I just got to keep chugging along. But it's so difficult, man.
Yeah.
It's so challenging.
I feel like with social media now, when you're going through it, like it hurts a little bit more because you see other people not, you know, opposite, and they're you know, still thriving, or, you know, they show it is.
Yeah.
You know,
I just posted in the group that the little saying that I came across in the last week or two that was like, it's such a blessing to be like, have the challenges of the businesses and things that are going on that you once dreamt about.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, it's kind of what it said. It's like, it's like just, you know, breeds more opportunity, but it's like you at one point now you were like dying that 10 years ago you'd be in the same position.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just like, it's just that perspective.
Yeah.
That word perspective. It's like, you know, just keep that in mind of how far you've come, and we're always, you know, looking forward to the next thing, but it's like trying to take some stock and like, you know, come a long way.
Yeah.
When you look at year by year, when I've added up all the different things that we've tried, but I sort of zoom out and just, okay, what was like the big one or two things we did that year? I'm like, dude, it was like almost every other year we tried something new, like the mortgage company or brokerage. And I'm like, when you zoom out, so much stuff we've actually tried. And so now I've like banged my head against the wall, and I'm 35 now, so I'm like, all right, I got enough brain damage the last 10 years. It's like, hopefully I'm good from here.
Yeah. I look, so I've been in real estate for 5 years now.
Okay.
And when I think back of when I like really just kind of zoom out, I guess, and look at the different things that we've done, I'm like, I feel like I've been in this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because there are so many.
If you didn't tell me, I would have thought it would have at least been that. Yeah.
Oh, no, just 5.
I got all the gray hair. So you cut it so short. I know my wife's like, getting the gray hair. I'm like, oh,
well, thanks for pointing it out. Yeah. So, with what you learned in the military, what is like maybe a lesson that you bring, like, or use on a daily basis with either your business or like your family? What was something you learned that you translated pretty well?
Yeah, I think I experienced this, but I also think I just heard it from other branches. Like the Marines specifically, you have a lot more responsibility at like a lower rank.
Okay.
And so if the business is struggling or you go through rough times, like you need strong people, man.
Yeah.
Like the systems will work, the technology will work, but like the people is what runs it. And so when I think about the way that interact with, whether it's family members or the business itself, is like your sphere of influence, your circle, with people just being the priority and really trying to educate them, empower them to do better. Like if we're talking like employees specifically as an example, do they have the right tools, the right encouragement? Like how do we help them grow as leaders? Because when when the business and stuff and investing is going good, it's great. But when it gets challenging or you need people to put in extra hours, like betting on people is really going to make the delta and the difference if everything else is like pretty much in alignment. So I think that was one of the things is how do we like constantly try to evolve our team?
Yeah.
And that there's like life outside of business. And so I'll be hiring somebody and say like, I hope you're here for 20 years, but if you're only here for 2 and it just ends up being a stepping stone to something better, that's totally fine. So I expect that like, nobody's going to sit around for a pension like they used to, right?
Yeah.
It's just people evolve so much quicker and just everything's changed on how people interact with work, and it's just so important to have a little bit of relief and outside goals away from the business, but understanding that and encouraging your team or setting aside time for yourself to like really sort of like have some relaxation and just a little bit of decompression. And so I think just the ability to like create other leaders, or at least try our best to.
Yeah.
And
how do you do that?
I think it starts by just setting an example, really.
Yeah.
And so when I'm sharing stuff with my team, I'm like, hey, I'm like up late at night reading books, or like some of the stuff I'm working on, or strategizing with ChatGPT, like help me formulate some ideas. Like I'm really revamping all of our core values, our mission statement, our sort of brand promises. Like I'm going through all this stuff right now, and I feel like for the first time now, probably since I've had the management company, at least specifically, I feel like it really embodies like what I wanted versus like just core values that sit on the wall that don't really matter. So
Yeah.
I think it just really starts at the top, because just like with your kids, they are paying attention even when you're not talking, right? It's like your actions and stuff. And when you could do something that's slightly sketchy or like maybe not the right thing, or maybe the client would never know about it, I think it just paints a picture for how your team needs to operate and react. And then just you setting the example on, if it's the books or the podcasts, or like you're going to conferences and developing yourself, then they'll be more encouraged to do it, or at least see like, hey, it's just not somebody that's trying to stay stagnant. Because whether it's business or your marriage, it's going down if you're not working on it, right? Your health, it's like it doesn't like just
there's no flat line.
Sideways. So I think that it's probably the biggest way to simplify it, just setting the right example. And if you need to, and that's not a strong point, like I'm actually was like super introverted growing up. I think the military sort of helped a little bit with that, and now people may not realize it as much, but you can change over time. But just realizing like if it's not your strong suit, bringing in people like business coaches or people that can help you sort of develop that, or just hiring somebody that's sort of more of a developer of people. I think is probably one of the bigger things that I realized, just like how much you can go through. And when the times suck, it's like everyone's just like in the military, it's like embrace the suck. You're like, this is terrible. And it's like so bad that you kind of have to laugh about it, because it's like, this just sucks so bad, but people are in the trenches with you.
Sure.
So it helps.
Yeah.
But I think the focus on people is just like something we have to constantly remind ourselves, like, yeah, there's all this other great stuff out here, but if you can really get A players, man, like just the ROI they have on the business and the leverage you get, and then when those tough times come, it's like they're really like going to stick it out. And don't have it all thought out as far as like hiring the right people, and it's kind of like, depends on the role and how important it is, on maybe how much time you take to really vet and hire and all this stuff. But it's like, that's just such a key piece when you have good synergy within the business, like little to no drama among team members.
Yeah.
They just drive the business in such a more powerful way than you could if you just, didn't have them, or, with perfect systems, like people are always better to bet on. So
Yeah.
I think that would be one of the biggest things that sort of came away with just how a close team can operate and really what you can achieve with like little resource.
Yeah. We found that one, as you mentioned, just kind of like reading the books and like setting the example, that has become so important for our team. And what I notice is more in like I notice it most in like the fitness aspect of our team. It's the easiest thing for someone to kind of jump on the bandwagon, you know, but most of our team was not like, half of our team probably not really into fitness.
Yeah.
And like as Bennett and myself, we were huge in the gym, and we
Right.
talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, this team member is starting to do this now in fitness. This one's starting to do this. This one's lost 60 pounds now.
Yeah.
It's like, it just, the impact of setting that example through action is it's so important.
And it's like having the intentionality around like, and now maybe for you it's been shifted to be like something to be more intentional about bringing it up more often, so because it's actually rubbing off, and that's like part of what I'll think about too is just that repeated effect of touching on it as like this is sort of something that we're interested in or promoting within the team, or encouraging them, even if it's something that you don't really do, just sort of show that you care about something that they have an interest in, but being so physical too for that piece of it's like there's so many obvious benefits of being healthy anyways.
Yeah.
And it could they just start somewhere small that they have an interest in. Maybe it's just like quiet time or sort of like some stretching and some stuff where it just gets them mentally in a different space. Because I don't know how people do it. They just like sort of work a 9 to 5 or just work a job and come home and they just sort of like, I don't know, kind of like just watch TV and go to bed and just do it all again. It's like, I find time to go to the gym. I still, play a little Call of Duty here or there, and it's just like the structure you have, but it's like, those are just some of the basic things that have such a big improvement on the business environment, but and the team collectiveness that they have and all that stuff. And that's one thing that I've been thinking on some too, is some incentives for our team that I might roll out next year that's not like financial bonuses, but it's like experiences.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you go take your family to the museum locally, like we'll reimburse you for it. Or
wow.
And based on tenure and stuff, there's like dollar amounts maybe that we're sort of coming up with this little matrix, but something to just promote life outside of work, because that stuff they're just going to perform better, do better, be happier.
That's awesome. I really like that. That's cool. And if you could tailor it to be more like something that forces them to get steps in or something like that, it's just it's gonna benefit you more in the long run.
Whoever, a little fitness challenge gets more leads. Battle for the leads. I'm just kidding. It's a good thing. And it helps too when you have like a number two or partner in the business too, like help just share the sort of responsibility of leading the team and encouraging and kind of just helping amplify that sort of second voice. It's where like my wife will be like, she'll be like, I told you the same thing, but you heard it from somebody else, and then it sort of clicks. But just having like 2 points of perspective. So
What does your team look like? Are you virtual or?
So we have so we're probably about 50% remote and 50% local on the management stuff, and then wife's architecture stuff is a little bit more remote than that, and then the brokerage staff-wise, like basically remote. So it's been a lot of, and we kind of, one of my people have been for a long time, so we'd always been a proponent of some sort of remote, whether it's freelance, or just a stuff, or just like an employee. But that's been one of the biggest things is our industry allows for that to really do, versus like having a landscape company where like some of the office staff could be remote, but like you gotta have a guy mowing the lawn.
Exactly.
So that's another thing that we're super fortunate with the management model is how remote you can be. I mean, I think people would be surprised on how much we can accomplish where like a lot of the team's remote, and tons of benefits around it. So like we've been huge proponents of that. It's exciting to see just interacting with people from other parts of the world. You get just difference in cultures, understanding like sort of how they interact, and then like you're paying them a great wage for like their area too. So and just promoting different benefits and stuff. And so it's been one of the biggest things that we've really sort of had to, because of that big client we lost, we had to sort of restructure, and it was mostly labor. I had to mostly go remote and it's been like a great thing. But it kind of forced us to do that to a more extreme level, and I couldn't be happier with the way the business is operating.
Probably a lot leaner.
You know, a lot leaner, and then capabilities, man. Like these people are just as good as anybody you'd find in the States, so maybe even better because they appreciate the opportunity more. And so we're just huge proponents. Like every business should be having remote people for sure, in some capacity or another. But it's been one of the biggest things I think that any business could implement. That when you have the right technology is like super powerful, and all the stuff, all the different automations you could build and around different things. But yeah, remote team's been great. It is different sort of like management. You know, you're not meeting face to face. You know, you might be on Zooms or whatever, but you have to kind of really put more effort to like really, I think, build a strong culture. Yeah. It's just so different when you can't meet the people in face to face all the time. And so it kind of changes a little bit maybe of management style and stuff, but remote stuff's been great. There's a lot of ways to keep people accountable too, and man, it's just been like an amazing thing.
That's awesome.
And then as like sales or even what you guys are doing, so much of the legwork behind the scenes can be done remote, you know, at like a fourth of the cost of what you pay here, or maybe less. And so it's just a beautiful thing. And then you just really have an army. So then everybody benefits. Like your clients benefit from like you don't have to raise prices, and you can provide a better service. Like for us, the residents and the owners have both experienced much more benefit when we're able to do that. The business is more profitable, so we can pay for better employees, better technology, all this extra stuff. So it's just like it's a little sort of revolving door of benefits. So people need to take a hard look at it if they're not using it already. Yeah. It's such an awesome thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. All right, so you have 3 kids, you said?
Yeah.
How old?
So my daughter's just turned 5, and then basically 2.5, a little older than 2.5, in like a 9-month.
9 months. All right. How's that going?
A little fat dude, man. He's always on the 99th percentile, like height. Dude, he's so chunky, bro. And I'm like, I think he's gonna be like taller than my in the middle is a son, so I have daughter, son, and yeah, it's been amazing. I grew up my parents had 5 boys, and we're all like 2 years apart. So that was like really important, and you know, very fortunate that we all live within the area here. Sure. So like within an hour or 30 minutes of each other. And so it's been fun doing that, and you know, like I said, you kind of go through seasons of like complexity with the ages and how it becomes sometimes harder or just like different in how you're raising the kids, and then like the business environment, being able to still operate the businesses, and it really just forces you to prioritize differently. And so I think if like, you know, sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, when we were like just dating or married but like no kids yet, I'm like, man, what do they do on the weekend?
I know.
You forget. And I'm like, we probably just have a lot of like time that we were just kind of not doing much. And so just prioritize, like I get up in the morning, I get the kids ready, I take them to school, work the full day, I pick them up, you know, most of the time helping with dinner. And then I usually, at least with the older, most of my time focus kind of on the 2 older ones, and then my wife mom will sort of be in charge of the smaller one. And but it's like I got a full day. I'm feed them, you know, play with them, bathe them. I do all the routines for at least the 2 older ones, and then it's like, you know, I get done maybe 7 or 8, and then, you know, I've always been like I've struggled always to wake up early, and it's been something like I kind of think when it goes back to that self-awareness, just like there's some things you realize that maybe I'm just wired this way.
Sure.
Like you really put in a lot of effort, and so like now I'm forced to get up to get kids to school early. But it's like I've always worked out in the evening, get a little bit of energy boost, and that's when I'm like, then that's when I'm powering on the books and like the research on, you know, all the marketing and stuff that we're doing is like that quiet time.
Yeah.
Where you just have no distractions. And so that's for me, like I get that sort of the boost in the evening but it's like the gym piece of it just really helps me get through that. And so that's kind of how I've been structured, but it's just a support circle, man. And with the kids, it just makes you prioritize different. It's like I feel like now the single people with no kids have like no excuse. Yep. When I see it, or I might have mentioned it at the talk I did recently, where I'm like, man, it just forces you to prioritize differently.
Yeah.
And,
you look at your time a lot differently, and you see potential within your time that you didn't see, you know, before.
It makes you, I think, a more effective like business person if you sort of are doing it the right way, because you're like, okay, what's really priority for today? Like what's on my calendar, or just like in general, it's like it's okay to say no to different meetings, or like no to opportunities, or it's like maybe it's, you know, just not right now, and stuff. So it's been a great experience, and but we're done with the 3 and done, dude.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's been a cool thing, and it also just makes you think more about legacy.
Yep.
And like you have the businesses, but like what do I really want to make sure I'm passing down, and like experiences that you're having.
Yeah.
And you kind of think about like what's my earliest memory I have, like good or bad, with parents or something, and I think a lot of people would be like 4, 5, 6 somewhere in there. You probably had something where like that was sort of carried forward at such a young age, and it's crazy to think like just some of those things. There's things that you remember for such a long time, and whatnot. But yeah, there's like so many things that we do that we kind of penalize ourselves, or I think our structure, the way the sort of daily routines or things that we do, where it's like, does it have to be this way?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be this way. Like, let's change our schedule or rearrange things around where it's like, I always get anxiety around this because I don't, maybe I need to wake up 15 minutes earlier because it's like this, get the kids' shoes on. Like, there's so much little stuff when we really analyze that part of our headaches are just self-induced. Mm-hmm. And it's like really trying to take stock, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
Like, it can be different. What do I need to change to make sure around, or taking different business meetings or opportunities or whatever. It's like,
you have more control.
There's things I do too where I'm like, people want to meet or be like, we should get together. I'm like, yeah, man, just hit me up, dude. And then it's like, usually they never come back.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm interested, but it's like, if it's not a priority for you, then why is it for me, right?
Yeah.
So like, there's small stuff I'll do like that where they sort of just self-source. If they're really serious about something, they'll reach out or whatever. But it's like, you have to build that buffer around you and your family of like your time and stuff. So
yeah, I've been getting better about saying no. Really trying to analyze like, is there really a benefit outside of like people will ask, hey, let's grab some coffee or let's grab some lunch because it's just been a while, and I'm like, well, we actually haven't talked in like 6 months, so like if we have lunch or coffee or something like that, we may have some decent conversation, but we're probably going to go another 6 months without talking. Cool. It's like, why do I want to do that?
Does it have to be an hour? Can it just be like 20-minute meeting? Like the calendar just makes you do like 15-minute increments. It was like, does this really need to be an hour? Like, so you just force your meetings to be less. And there's a lot, and that's all that stuff where you do 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here, you save, and you sort of like really just crunch down all that translates into.
Those are like 20, 30-minute increments where like I could be like getting my head right, or like just doing something that's gonna reduce the anxiety of something I got going on. So James actually gave me a pretty good piece of advice, and it's something that he's like moved towards when it comes to like people wanting to catch up.
Oh yeah.
And usually it's within real estate, but suggesting that, hey, I'm going to this networking event, why don't we actually meet up there?
Oh right, yeah.
And I think that was I was like, that's awesome, because you're already going to spend your time there, and it's killing numerous stones or numerous birds with one stone.
And I've done some of that, and then sometimes like we have our office in Ybor, so it's kind of a fun spot to be anyways, but I just started to like more expect people to just come to, hey, Ybor, got coffee down the street, right? So why am I going to drive, like why am I don't know, maybe it's selfish. I don't know. To me, it's just like smart planning. Like I think as entrepreneurs, we're lazy. Like, what's the most efficient way to get there with like the least amount of friction? It's like, why don't you come by? Or, like I had to deliver a check to somebody. I'm like, just pop it by. I'll just run out to the street. But it's like, you got to meet here, meet there. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff where you start to realize, like, why am I driving 30 minutes to go over this way? Or like, I can just invite them here.
Yeah.
Like,
we
have to meet. And
if you really want to meet,
it's like, halfway or something, or like, or it could just be a quick phone call in the car, catch it up. Why do I have to, meet for 30 minutes or an hour on coffee when I can just like, call you for 10 minutes? Yeah, what's up, dude? And that's the thing where you just always have to be thinking about like your time, because if you don't schedule it, like someone's gonna schedule it for you.
Yeah.
That's true. I've done a lot of things, same things.
Yeah.
And I think you have to, dude, like at some point. And then you really sift out who's real or not about what they want to do, but your schedule is just going to get more busy as time goes on, whether you have more kids or more employees or the businesses. It's like never going to go, less. Yeah. Unless you make it that way.
Yeah. Maybe 20 years down the road, when it just says golf or something.
I know, dude. Or remote. We've talked about like, I'd love if my kids were older, maybe homeschooling and stuff to some extent or something, maybe, but like being able to travel more, right? Like I'd love to I live in maybe the Dominican Republic for like 6 months of the year. Down there, just have, because you have like 3 nannies, dude, for the price of like one here, right? So that it could be like a king down there. So yeah, trying to plan that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like talk with the wife. What's our goals? What do we really want to be doing? And
Yeah.
some of that stuff. But it's all based around that.
Yeah. So every entrepreneur's journey kind of starts somewhere. There's a spark or something. What led you to like property management? How did you get to that point to where you decided that was the business to go down?
So when I was doing brokerage sales, and Greg's dad was the broker for us at the time and helped us start the businesses because I didn't have 2 years in the business yet. And we just got a couple of referrals for a few of the houses as rentals. And it was like, all right, cool, take them on, like just something new to learn. And Bill had experience with some property management stuff and was really just getting some exposure to it. Because I was like, all right, something new to kind of learn and try. And then like it really started to pick up, and we were pretty fortunate to be like in Tampa at the time. So we do like mostly Hillsborough and Pinellas.
Okay.
But to be in the area during that sort of 17, 18, 19, 20, like the market was cooking. I mean, we tripled in size like 3 times, first like those years, it was like double in size, like just really rapid growth. So we kind of just got right place, right time a little bit. But once it was like the business model, which is like what I look at now, is like how much of the business model can be recurring revenue.
Sure.
So if you're like an AC company, like how much of it can you tie into like those subscription plans? Like I'm just addicted to like the recurring revenue model because once I realized you could just, I could like pay myself consistently and plan. It's like, man, it was just such an amazing thing. And then just to realize like most of the people that own management companies are older for sure. Like go to these conferences, like by far, like there's some younger people that are, to be one of the owners, it's much more older age. And so it's just kind of like old ways of thinking. The industry's come a long way in the last like 5 years for sure on technology and all this stuff. It's really incredible what we're able to do. But it was sort of identifying that recurring revenue, and then it's like, the benefits of like, man, it's like so much of it's remote.
Yeah.
And just everything just started to make so much sense. Like, let me take sort of the real estate agent hat off and, property manager on. And so, I didn't really kind of just filtered out. And then as we were building the brokerage, it's like I would just refer something to one of my agents and make something on it. But it was like the management company just really became that sort of business that was like really working where I could pay myself well and I could experiment on other places. And our goal still is like you build the management company, and then it's like if we want to have the maintenance in-house, which is like one of our goals that we're working towards, and then but if I wanted to have a little AC company or a little electrical company, I have all the contacts to pull permits and stuff myself now, or basically have people that will do it for us super cheap. And so it's like I'm building that infrastructure where if I can build a management company big enough, then I can have a bunch of these other verticals.
Yeah.
So when
you'll constantly have AC issues.
When we buy our own rentals, right? Like we could do the maintenance on it. It was that whole concept of like build a management company and then you can choose where the business goes.
Yeah.
So whether it's a trade that we want to expand into, whether it's our own rentals that we want to do the maintenance on, whether it's like we start to do new builds ourselves, which we haven't really just done yet, but it's like now my wife can design the plans.
That's cool.
We can put together the funding. Most of the deals we've done, so for the vast majority of the time was like private investors. So it's like we're familiar with like bringing money in, and it's like then you start to build those components. And my value add was like I didn't come from a family that had money or like any investing experience. It's all just self-taught on if I can find the deals and operate them, I know people will come with the money, right?
Sure.
So that was kind of the idea, was like build a management company up, and then you have the ability to like just choose these other verticals, or if an owner wants to sell and it's a slamming deal, and it's like I just buy it direct from one of my owners that I manage for. So it was like kind of just that concept of like if I build that, everything else can kind of sort of fall into place. And that's why I started realizing the management company is such a cool thing. So a lot of people stumble into the management companies. Like you rarely find somebody that's like, I'm going to go start a property management company. It's almost always by sort of accident. And then you realize like it's kind of like golden goose, like nobody knows it's like as profitable as it could be. Because you just think like the mental barrier, like dealing with tenants and evictions and kicking people out, or like all the horror stories. People are like, dude, you always have somebody on call for maintenance. Like, why would you ever? I'd say one of those models where you're like, why would you ever do that business, right? But it's such an amazing thing when you dial it in, and that's the mental barrier of sort of people not going into the industry as much, and just the leverage that we're having in technology and remote team members now and stuff like that. It's been like an amazing thing, but it all sort of stemmed from that recurring revenue. And just like ability to like if we own assets, we can manage them ourselves too. It's like sort of some of the basic early on ideas for it.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm part of another group. based out of Denver, and we go through a learning series, and we had one called like Raise the Floor, and it's basically, you know, we talked basically about that recurring revenue and how can you. I've been looking at things a lot differently since kind of going through this and kind of just being exposed to that. Like when you have big swings on flips and stuff like that, like that's awesome, but it's not reliable.
Yeah.
But if you can build that recurring model and you can slowly, you know, kind of increase that over time, you're constantly raising the floor of like what you can rely on for the income that's going to come in.
Oh yeah. Okay,
and when you have that, you know, reliability, it there's that relief, that, you know, level of stress that you're not dealing with, that you're dealing with in wholesaling or flipping and stuff like that. And it's like when things slow down, it's like, well, how am I going to get paid? You know?
Yeah, and it's like it's analyzing the different models you're involved in on like the cash flow perspective of it, like the cash flow management of the business and the life cycle of like with my wife's architecture stuff, we used to bill sort of like in 4 different ways, and it's like nobody told us what percentages need to be at each stage, so why don't we front load it? Why don't we sort of like decrease the back end exposure, because it takes really long on this last cycle to get paid, and front load those percentages. And that was just a simple thing of like, it doesn't have to be this way. Why don't we front load more of that cost? Like clients are still signing proposals, like, and so you kind of like go through that analysis of like, you know, can we just shift? Or is there, like with us, there's some like upsell opportunities. You know, it could be more services for the owners, or like things on the tenant side. Like we offer them something that they want to opt into, and it might be a little bit of a revenue source on something.
What are one of those things that like you offer maybe on both the owner side and the tenant side?
It could be something as simple as like inspections. Like maybe we you know, maybe we have a certain amount of inspections we want to do every year for an owner that's sort of included, but if they want something extra, or like more eyes on, or like a little bit more analysis on something, we might offer something that's a little bit more like one-off, or like an owner's like, yeah, I really, you know, we usually process a certain, you know, amount of payments every month to them, like twice a month, but if they're like, oh, I need you to send more money that we just collected, like there's like special owner draws. There's like a lot of little things that could be like, just as an owner needs maybe something slightly custom.
Got it.
That we might do, or on the resident side, like little incentives of you know, pay your rent on time, you get a little bonus on this, or like renter's insurance or something like that, where there might be an opportunity where they're, you know, we sort of want them to have it, and we might offer it, but they could buy it from anywhere, but it might still be a revenue source that they can opt into. Or if they want us to report their payments to like a credit bureau for like on-time payments to boost their credit, there's like little things like that could be small revenue sources. And you may only be talking like $1, $2, $3, but if you're able to multiply it by a bunch of families, then it's where it becomes like real money. And and so that's the kind of thing, thinking about that. But for you guys, it's like, does, you know, the way we get paid, does it really have to be this way? And trying to do it. And some of you are just stuck with it, right? Like a flip or something, you're kind of just stuck with like how the model is. But with everything else, kind of going through that thought process of like, can we change sort of the billing cycle? Or if you're like doing construction, it's like, can we just bill more on the front end? And how can we get paid quicker along the way from some of the people that we're doing? Or can we provide a discount if they pay more up front or pay on time? And just trying to like, you know, really, especially for those businesses that have like long cash flow cycles, where people might just like, you know, kick your invoice down the road, makes it really hard. But that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a great concept to go through, because as you guys are expanding and just doing your different business stuff, you're kind of keep that in mind. Like, what can we upsell even, you know, add additional services, or like a tier level, like maybe a tier 2 on like this sort of product. Or it's like listings, right? It's like, hey, if you want the 2% listing, this is what you get. But if you want to pay us 4%, this is all the other stuff you get, right? And then most agents just probably offer one thing, right? But it's like, do you want to have 2 or 3 levels? Maybe not. But just like, does it have to be this way? Yeah,
it's a recurring question that I feel like you're asking, but I love it. You know, it really telling yourself it doesn't have to be this way, and then how can I make it, you know, something else? Because really, you know, when I'm going through things, or if I'm having a down month or something like that, sometimes I find myself like just needing to sit down and be like, your life's not over. You know, it can be different. You know, you may be going through something tough right now, but it will end at some point. You know, and really, I guess what I'm thinking is it doesn't need to be this way if we just kind of take the right next steps. You know,
and setting time to like really be able to just think about it. Like one of my favorite books of all time is The Road Less Stupid.
I love that book.
Dude, I go through it so much, dude. I think you posted somewhere maybe about that. One of the guys shared it. I'm like, dude, I go through that book so many times, like a few times a year, and so like I think it's a combination, like the business groups that you're in, you're getting some like valuable input and brainstorming ideas, and then like just time to be quiet. So like a couple weeks ago, I was like Hyde Park, just like Fridays I kind of have like as more like chill days. like flexible.
That's cool.
Kind of like flexible, sort of half day, if you will.
Creative days,
like,
or
at least in the afternoons, I'll be like, I just try not to plan meetings. It's like I might be still working, but it's like nothing crazy. It's kind of like a more relaxed day if I can. And I finished some stuff early. So like literally, I was just talking to ChatGPT for like an hour and a half on like different ideas. Like, hey, because now it's got so much information from our business, and then my employees actually use the paid account for like, I need to basically tell the tenant like something like they're not gonna like to hear. How do I sort of package it in a certain way, right? It's like a basic idea. So it's got all this information about the management company, but I'll be just brainstorming like the employee benefits, like a lot of cool ideas. I'm like, I want to create something, but the people aren't remote. They're remote, so they can't have 401ks. Like, and just like spinning out different ideas on like brainstorming potential things that we want to look at. And it's like having a business coach.
It really is.
You know, and so that's something that I think between like having like a really good group that's not so like B&I related, but more like higher level business guys, you're kind of getting a different sort of thought process. And then when you kind of, oh man, I almost have my personal like business coach with like ChatGPT or Grok or something that I can sort of really talk to and put my business information into, like help me think about all this stuff. But you have to just like schedule the time to like be able to do that, right? To do that. There's so many breakthrough things, or like I read a lot, and I always get the physical copies, and I'm like, man, I might go through a whole book and only get like 2 or 3 takeaways, but it's like, man, that just that little stuff. And if I'm reading a book, you know, every month or every 2 months, just dialing that in, but being able to have that sort of feedback loop, and that's why I've been so excited about like the business sort of building, especially with the ChatGPT, is like just giving me so much ideas on different stuff. I'm like, where am I missing the mark? And even having it reference certain books, like understand this book, like Blue Oceans. There's a book called Blue Oceans. And like, how can I create something totally new where I'm not just like competing against my competitors, like all those other things, but like reference the book and tell me like what could I offer that's totally different. And like, man, just the ideas is pretty incredible. Just being able to schedule the time, and like I mentioned earlier, just having some good counsel to like bounce those ideas off of, like what's really gonna make sense and stuff.
It's crazy how it can accelerate your business or just who you are as a person when you take advantage of those things. The people who aren't, they're missing the mark. You know?
It's such a important thing, and I've done personality tests over time too, and like you change as a person, right? Like your sort of strengths, and you know, I'm if you look at like the DISC profile, like used to be like not as high as C, but it's sort of how like different business partners have different strengths. That's sort of how like, you know, I had to like catch us up on some stuff, right? I like had to learn that because maybe it wasn't a strong point for the other person, and so you sort of mold over time too. It sort of dictates how you kind of change and how you think, and then that's why it's important to go through that material, those books and just stuff like multiple times. You're at different places, and stuff just hits different, and there's just those little nuggets that come out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So going back to property management, how many doors, units are you guys managing at the time?
We're just over 300 now.
Wow.
Single family, multifamily.
That's Hillsborough and Pinellas.
Yeah, we have some stuff up in Pasco, not a lot, but yeah, mostly predominantly like Hillsborough, Tampa, St. Pete. Or Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, that kind of thing, and most of that's third party. We have some rentals that we own ourselves, and really, I think we really excel from that 5 to like, you know, 50 unit, if you will. It's really challenging to manage the scattered.
And when you say that, do you mean like per owner or like
it's a multifamily asset,
like a property?
Yeah, it could be like, you know, so it could be just like a little 8 unit over here, an owner has over here. But when you get to on-site management, which is probably your more like 75 plus unit count, you might have somebody on site. And it's kind of like you kind of compete against bigger, different companies. Or like some property management companies just do single family. Some don't do single family, multifamily, and then we have friends that just do multi and they don't do the smaller stuff. So they'll refer us to that sort of smaller asset. It's just tougher because you don't have on-site management and it's like it's just more challenging. But that's what that's the stuff that we want to own, right? And it's just like there's a real good opportunity for us in that stuff. But we do houses and townhouses and like 2 to 4 units, and we're a pretty good mix of that. We have maybe 30% of what we do is about houses. The next 30% is probably the 2 to 4 unit, and the other would be like 5 plus units. And so that's been like really our cup of tea, is like really what we like to do is within the property management space, and then just growing that. So just doing that at a bigger scale, you know, and then kind of reassessing where we want the business to be.
Yeah. When your property management started to like really blow up, did you have kids yet, or? And did that? I guess did you think about how that would affect like your future life and what you wanted?
Not at the time. We really started to cook because my daughter was born actually right in the middle of COVID. What a crazy time that was to have a kid. So it had been cooking a little bit up until then,
Okay.
but it didn't really. I would say it didn't impact maybe as much of like when we decided to have kids. That was kind of related actually to my wife's architecture degree and transferring all our stuff to get licensed here before we wanted to kind of like do that and just get done with that. But I think it did in the what we talked about, the business model piece of it. It's like being able to have consistent income as a business owner to where you can, qualify for the loans that you want. And then like I thought about the type of car I would need when I have kids before. Like I've always had just SUVs because I'm going to have a kid at some point. Like I don't have to buy a new car. So like just weird things like that. People don't think about like, just had the SUV before I needed it kind of thing. Like just always kind of playing, all right, well, I don't want to have to buy a car. I just sort of drive that. And so some of those things, but yeah, definitely around like the stability piece of it, and like being married to the spouse, like being cool with like how the incomes ebb and flow, and then the risk tolerance, right, of me and her, like as people, like where are you most comfortable to make sure. So yeah, it was definitely a thought process around like that was such a like cool thing that we had stumbled upon was the recurring revenue and the pay structure. It was like it's pretty cool.
That's cool. Do you and your wife have the same risk tolerance, or are you guys on kind of different levels there?
She kind of like she's just lets me like really handle the finances, and which has been cool too, of like not feeling pressure like you gotta drive a certain car or a certain live in a certain area, the house size or whatever, right? Like and so that's been nice not to like feel that pressure like gotta have like designer bags, like like we're just like very I don't know. I drive a 2017 Ford Explorer. She drives a 2016 Mazda. They're paid off. It's like, I don't know, until they poop out, then I'm going to upgrade, right? So we're just like very sort of simple in how we manage that stuff. But she's always kind of let me do it. And like I said, I think it just comes to that bond. And then like our faith too is like, we just know like things are going to work out. So she's, I would say she's pretty risky. Sure. Like she kind of relies on if it's investing or something, like just sort of judgment call on what we want to do and like, and sort of alignment there. But definitely not somebody that's like got to feel like we got to always have tons of money in the bank just sitting there just like for a rainy day versus like having some of that money at work. So pretty fortunate, but I feel like we're pretty aligned on that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's really important because like, I don't know, as an entrepreneur, you're like, you want to invest your money in something and see what comes, what kind of return there is. And like, if your partner's not aligned with that and they're more like, I just want to focus on my 9 to 5 and like put money in the bank, it's like, it's really hard to do that. I want to
spend money on this. It's like, do we want that, or you want to like buy another rental or something?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's always like sort of give and push and a push pull. And like I said, it's kind of like seasons and stuff where it's like, do I really need to like fight over this, or is it like a big deal, or just, if it's going to make them really feel better, like, let's just invest the money, even though it's like something that it's like more of a like personal ROI, or there might be something that they want to do, like hiring a gym trainer or something where it's like I mean of course there's a benefits of that, but it's like, do you want to do that or this thing over here, right? Like what's kind of more important? But we've been pretty aligned on stuff, but it's such a, I mean I think most marriages fail because of something around the finances, right? Or divorce, whatever. It's like that's sort of biggest piece. And we've always been shared bank accounts, all that stuff, but I know some people that don't do that, and so it's just kind of like we've always been on alignment pretty well on what we want to do with stuff, or kind of like, all right, this, not today to fight that battle on that hill, dude. I don't want to die today, so it's fine.
Nice. So going back to you mentioned earlier the maintenance of property management, and like, to me, having a little bit of experience owning a couple rentals,
right.
And just kind of, just being around it, like I envision this as it's a 24/7 thing. You're, that if the tenant has the tenant's problems don't stop at 5 o'clock,
right.
And they, they definitely don't just like, if they happen on the weekend, they don't wait till Monday to be resolved. So like, I know that there's a lot of demand that you probably dealt with in the beginning. Was there ever a point where like that got in the way of like your family life?
So early on, there was, not having a big team yet. You're obviously doing a lot more, but it's kind of like it's all about the understanding the urgency of it and setting expectations, whether it's with a client or a resident, on like expectation of, there's actually a big difference, as a simple example, on work order completion. If somebody just has a basic work order, and we've looked at, there's a company specifically that's done process millions of work orders through their software. They have tons of data. Where they're like, owners actually think that this should have been fixed in 3 days, where it's like realistically, the top companies are doing like 6 or 7 days.
Wow.
So there's a huge disconnect on sort of people's expectations of how quick stuff can really get done.
Yeah.
By the time it comes in and you schedule it, and then you have to determine the urgency of the repair, and there could just be a huge sort of misunderstanding. But it's really the communication style of letting the resident know, as an example, like, we see it, it's here, we acknowledge that we received it, it's been scheduled, or the vendors, they can sort of see some of that happening on vendor scheduling or attempting to schedule. So I think a lot of that has helped over time, and then just setting those boundaries on like, you might have some automations that help sort of people feel like they're being updated, or like it's not getting lost in the dirt where it's like you're not doing anything, but it's like after hours, or we have some automated tools where work orders can get automatically scheduled. And then just like call center stuff, or just vendors in our space that offer after hours answering or like scheduling, and like there's a lot of tools and vendors out there that have really helped. So I've been really fortunate for many years now at this point to like not really have to do, like, I really don't ever do emails, after, I don't know, like 4 or 5 or whatever I leave for the day, and on the weekends I usually don't check them, and so it's having systems to set up so that some of that stuff doesn't get dropped. It's something important.
Yeah.
But I'll still see, like, we have some automations where like email might come in with a specific thing, and it'll shoot into a Slack channel where I see, okay, like, we have an emergency call that just came in because it's hit me on Slack, where I may not get the actual call, but I know it's there.
Got it.
And then like my cell phone is still on call at like 2 a.m. if there's a fire or something, right? Like
Sure.
Mobilizing team, or like helping coordinate, or just like I know about it. And so it comes like systems and expectation, I think, on what responsiveness. But just people knowing that they're being communicated with, or like there's that understanding of like, okay, the ball's not getting dropped.
Yeah.
So we've been really fortunate, and like I said, there's a lot of great vendors in the space that make it so that we can, and not have to work all the time. Sometimes there's stuff that pop out and do on a weekend or something, but it's pretty rare now. Yeah. And then I think people know too, at least on the ownership side, because we kind of have like 2 clients, like you have kids and stuff, like, hey, can this wait till Monday? And that's one thing I try to communicate to my team is like, hey, here's this task, but it's like, you don't have to do it today. Like if you do it the next week, that's fine. So it's like trying to also keep in mind as you're communicating stuff, the sort of timelines that are reasonable go a long way. And so, it's been a while since I've done like anything super crazy, but once a year you might have that fire or like busted pipe. You're like, all right, I probably need to roll. I might really need to roll over there because there's a real issue, but not as much as you would think probably. Actually, with like after hours calls, even that we have like 300 something families that we're involved with. It's like, and then what can you do if you do get like emergency calls? Like, is that something that we can actually even do anything if it comes in at 4? Is it like we just have to wait till 8 o'clock or 9 till vendors are working anyways? Yeah, it kind of depends, but a lot of good systems, tools, and stuff that we were able to use to where it's like not that crazy anymore. Yeah.
Was it ever crazy? Like when you were first getting started, did you set that foundation from the beginning, or did you ever find yourself on the weekend changing down a toilet or something?
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff. It's I think it's for us too. It speaks to like the types of properties over time too. Like we've sort of gotten out of some certain areas that are more challenging, that might be more prone to just like a lot of maintenance or deferred maintenance, or like age of properties, whatever. We might be a little more specific on stuff too, or like, okay, if we take a look, it's like we always have these sort of scenarios on this type of property or something, or like this area, and when it comes to crime and stuff too, like some of those areas where like we get a lot of calls about stuff happening over here where it's like comes at inconvenient times, and just being a little more selective on some of that stuff. But for sure at the beginning, but I've been able to leverage the brokerage some too, where I have like some agents that early on were able to like, hey, just like as needed, like, hey, can you do this showing for me, or like, can you run out and take some photos of this property for me, and some stuff where you just kind of like pay them per hour, per task kind of thing. So I think that just was able to be done from having a good network within the place of like people and stuff and the industry, and being able to work through that. So and then just the right expectations around your schedule. But like, I don't know, just never really had to pull like super crazy hours for a long period of time, because again, a lot of our stuff's remote. It's like, to be physically there, it's kind of like something that's like, we're looking at the property, or we're doing like turnovers or something. It's like, or showings could be in person. We have self-showing capability where people submit IDs and look at themselves, right? So there's just so much where like, it's a lot of just coordination. It's like most of the maintenance stuff, like we just got to get the vendor there. So it's like, not a lot of it actually really requires in person as much as people probably think.
Okay. Well, let's get tactical. So, as I was explaining, I think before we started rolling, I started this because I want to encourage dads to find a way to implement systems, optimize their time, get control really of their calendar, so that they can, be present with their kids and, but still also fulfill like their personal ambitions, their business requirements, and all that. Let's talk about hiring. When you, I don't know if you remember when you hired, like, made your first hire. This may sound silly, but like, what was the motivation, if you remember, for that first hire? Were you like trying to unload things from your plate, or were you trying to find someone who specialized in something that you didn't? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I think it was really some of the different books that walk, like E-Myth, or like some of these books that walk you through like frameworks around just starting out at a basic level, just delegating like the smallest stuff that's like easiest, low risk. If it gets messed up, kind of like your easiest opportunity to leverage a tool or something or a person at a low level. Just take out like the small, easy stuff to start with, right? And so a lot of it had been just depending on the process or the heaviness of what we were doing, but that was sort of how we would get an idea of like, where do we start? Like, what do we want to hire for? Is really getting clear on the role and the different duties and stuff. And then of course, like, if your value is at X bucks an hour or something, it's like, okay, if it's definitely tough, I think, on the first one, because like, man, if I'm hiring someone local, I'm probably gonna pay at least 40 G's just at bare minimum to get anybody even like that can breathe, right? So just kind of like that sort of confidence in like, I made the right decision. There's really a lot of benefit in sort of that it's not a cost, it's like an investment on my time to be able to do more, to bring in more business, to do like more high value tasks. And that's how we kind of think about technology today too, is building all these automations and stuff just helps our team do higher level thinking. Yeah. And so it was just built on sort of starting with the stuff that was either cheapest to do or like didn't really like to do or like didn't have the skills to, like the bookkeeping and stuff. We've always hired that sort of stuff out where, difference between sort of the low cost, easy fruit to outsource, and then like, what do I really just hate doing that I'll procrastinate doing because I hate it. So like, start there. It's worked well. Yeah.
Have you learned any lessons in hiring that you'd like to pass on?
Yeah, and I don't think I'm like really super great at it, but if you have, one thing that we've done with some recent hires is have, we actually have enough employees where like I can have an employee like interview. Yeah. So on the recent two that we've done the last 6 months was like having at least one of our employees. So like starting out, so yeah, we've kind of modified a lot lately on, because these last few have been remote. So, kind of like they'll go through an application process if they're interested, and they'll record a video going through these questions that we have. So it's just kind of interesting. And of course they have time to think about their responses, but it's still like we have some business ones and some fun kind of personal ones on like, what would you do with this? And then once they submit that, it's like, okay, then do we want to have one of our team members, do it, or your spouse or somebody else can like sort of interview capabilities and just like, and then I'm watching that video recording to kind of see. And then like, we're still a relatively small team, so then I'll like usually do the last one if like we're really interested or whatever. And so we've really modified some small things lately that's been kind of fun and good to get a flow, and just trying to get an adequate number of people interested to like really make a determination if there's like, are we just settling for somebody that's good, and maybe you have to for some period if there's just not the strength at the time you need of like applications and where you're at in the business. But I've always kind of tried to hire a little bit or maybe earlier than I think we really need. One, so like my team just doesn't die from being overworked or something. But I'm just going that planning and sort of stuff that we talked about earlier. I know we're not there yet, and I'm not hiring super early, but it's like, okay, it could be 6 months earlier than I really need. But it's like, there's no downside to like if somebody's sitting around for an extra hour a day. It's like, to me, it's just good to be that proactive hiring process. But yeah, some fun things that we've done recently. But having multiple layers, I think, of the interview before you spend your time on it is like something that we've dialed in on a little bit more. Yeah. And if you're just like one or two people, just finding somebody, or maybe you just hire a business coach. Hey, I'm gonna pay you for an hour at a time, like interview this person to help me, like as an outside person.
Interesting idea.
And then also like, how risky is the role if you get it wrong? Yeah. Right. If you're like managing 30 people and you're hiring like a CFO or like something like you might really want to have a recruiter like really vet. If you're hiring somebody for $8 to $25 an hour, it's like what's the real downside risk of what they're interacting with? So you might just you may just turn and burn a little bit quicker on some of those hires. Like if it didn't work, then next one. But because it's kind of low downside risk, low maybe training on the role, maybe isn't super complex. So I think that is also something to consider, is like, you know, how risky is the role if they don't get it right. And of course you still are going to lose time on like your time training, so like that needs to be factored in, but it's like, you know, just doing thought around the actual role and sort of risk if it doesn't work out, and kind of that maybe changing a little bit of the interview style or process that you do.
Yeah, gotcha. What are 3 tools or softwares that you've used that have really excelled your business and have allowed you to like buy back your time pretty much?
Yeah, so we're all like Gmail, all that stuff's been great. Obviously, like Zapier is one thing that we'll talk to some. Zapier will just basically let technology talk to other technologies or softwares, and very customizable, very easy. I would say VPN Solutions has been great. It's like an Indeed for remote people. So yeah, you might have Upwork or Fiverr, which are like freelance, or you can find somebody for ongoing work. But if you wanted them to actually be an employee, that's been a great resource to like search people across the world. Lots of different filters you can put through. Have they lived in the US? Do they have education experience? Like, do they have role experience? Like, just a lot of different things. That's been really fun to like self-source and really get. I mean, I think we had like 60 plus applications from one of our recent roles.
Wow.
And then you could even sort by country and stuff if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But that would be one thing that's maybe not software, but like I think if you're hiring, that was a great thing for remote people. There's, you know, obviously different companies that do different things for that. Monday.com's been one that probably would be universal to a lot of different businesses that could be used on CRM or like even kind of like workflowy stuff. Like can just talk to different softwares. That's something that we've used for like client onboarding and some stuff, and we're going to switch to something else that's a little bit more property management specific. But you could build like Gantt charts in there if you're like doing construction timelines, like very customizable to almost any industry. Monday.com would be one I would say if you're hiring remote. The other one was a good option. And then I think also just from your sort of time standpoint is being able to just really block your calendar. So like, even though that's like the most basic tool everybody should use, like if you look at my calendar, it's super structured and just really just living and dying by blocking what's, you know, the family's important, the big business ideas, and then everything else sort of filters in between there. And then there was actually one other thing that we did for our emails for our teams to manage their inbox better. And if I was ever to hire an assistant to manage my email inbox, how could I give them like the right filters and like right ways to do that? Was always like hate being in emails, like hate dealing with emails. And so there's a Gmail sort of, somebody came up with a blog where they wrote sort of just very simple way of filtering your email essentially. And that's probably been a very good thing too, to get clarity and for people to feel less anxiety about logging into work and having like 50 emails every time. It's sort of an archiving system. And again, it's very basic sort of framework, but it's just been worked well, helps you make less mistakes or forget stuff less, depending on, and then it gets everybody on the same idea, like how they manage their inbox, where you have like 10 different employees, 10 different email accounts where they all do it differently. And if somebody's out of the office, or you're like, how do we pick up where the other person left off, or shared inboxes, it gets everybody on the sort of same structure. Like this is sort of how the inbox is managed. So that way, if you have to step in or take over that role, or you have to let them go, you have an idea, like sort of how they were probably like what got touched last. That's a simple example. So they're probably
pretty smart. Ones. Yeah, I have someone managing my inbox, and I'll have to potentially explore that, but it was like a game changer.
Yeah, like, I think that if owners, and I don't have somebody managing it yet for me, but it's like man, that would be just such an unlock for so many people. Is like if I could just have somebody filter down like what's kind of important, what is like really urgent, what's not. Like man, it just would be like, I think somebody could literally just create a business on like the structure of that management email, and then like helping, and then just bring in remote people that they could hire as their like email inbox assistant, dude. And some of that stuff could be triggered to like what's important comes in. Like I have some stuff set up in Slack where. Then that was an amazing communication tool that we did a couple years ago. But I have some automations or auto forwards where like some of those important tagged emails will come in straight into Slack if I really need to see it. So that could be another way, is like you sort of have something like Gmail just spits emails into another something that you're seeing as like more urgent. Yeah. Because I have like on my phone, it's like Slack, like my team gets my first attention, and then it's like if people text me on WhatsApp or personal message, like I don't have any red bubbles on my phone at all. Nice. The only thing that gets me red bubbles is my work, and then like my wife's channel and WhatsApp. Everybody else is like silenced within those platforms. Sure. Or like the text message, like it'll show as unread if I open it, but there's no red bubble. as like a distraction. I've done that for many years. And so like I don't have like Facebook where it's like you get nothing gets notifications except what's most important. So when after this meeting, it's like boom, I'll go to Slack first with my team need, and then I'll sort of pop through a cycle and like where's important. And again, these are very basic ideas, but if you do them right and been doing them for so long, it's like that's how you just again get that tie back. And just prioritize like where does my attention need to go first. Like my emails, there's no like red bubbles on them, so I'm like unless I'm on my desktop or specifically looking for something, I don't see that little ticker.
Sure.
Same for social media notifications, I don't get any of those unless I'm logged into the app. And that was one of the things that I've been doing for years that I think is people should do more of.
Yeah, people should manage their phones better.
Screen time and everything.
It's crazy. I'll have like I'm guilty of this, but when I open up my phone, it's like I have a pattern that I go through. And, I check this app, and then I just like, all right, well, I might as well check this app. And then I go in that circle, and I might go 2 or 3 times before I shut my phone. It's like, why did you do that? You just wasted so much time.
Yeah. We all do it, man. We all do it. And then I'll take some breaks, too, from like social media for maybe like 30 days. I might just get totally off the apps or something. And
I've never done that.
No. You realize like, I didn't miss anything, dude. Yeah. Like, and you might still have like a team member check if it's business related, like make sure you don't miss a lead or something.
Yeah.
It's like in general, like Facebook, like I'll look through all the notifications, be like, dude, I didn't miss anything.
This was all garbage.
I escaped all those late night. My wife and I call them vortexes. Would be like Instagram stories, man. And now it's got me so good where like the memes would be popping up, be like sit there for an hour just laughing. But yeah, that notification, the noise distraction, right?
Yeah.
Your phone, Apple Watch, I wear it. I only get the calendar, like if a calendar is coming up, like a Zoom call or a meeting or something. Yeah. I don't use it for really anything else. Yep. And so it's like I'm not getting like little text vibrations the whole time we're talking, or it's like this thing's always silenced or whatever. And and again, none of this is life changing, but if it's like that 1% piece over time among all the softwares where you're like really fine tuning your personal time, because it takes 10, 20 minutes or whatever to like really refocus on something. Yeah. And depending on what it is, and any of that stuff's just noise, man.
Yeah.
Not letting other people's fires become yours. I think it was just such a big thing. The power of saying no, but that part of it where it's like I might have a client call me or something, and I'm like, okay, I might know where they're calling about, but if not, it's like, you just gotta be respectful of other people's time. But it's like, if I really need to get this thing done, it's like I'll call them back in 10 minutes. Right? I don't have to take that call every time right at that second. And or if it routes to somebody that's a backup call that can just take a message for me or something. But it's like so much of what we do is like other people's interruption on our time, and that's where like when you go back to the calendar and you're kind of blocking, you just have permission. Like it's okay to be like just get back to them in an hour or 30 minutes or whatever.
Technology,
it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, I feel like the advancement of technology has almost like removed our ability to focus on ourselves, because back in the day, if you were out of the house and you could only be reached by a landline, well then you could focus on yourself.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, if I can be reached at any time because I have a cell phone, it's almost rude that I'm not answering the phone. Yeah. And there's not that respect from the other side.
Yeah, and it's so challenging in our industry because you're almost like sort of everybody's working all the time, or like let's say like real estate agents, as an example. It's like you're going to get those stupid calls at 8 or on the weekend because it's either a client or another agent that's like is just working, which is kind of like sort of the nature of the business. But it's like, so sometimes it kind of sucks being in real estate because there's sort of like everyone's just like does a lot of stuff all the time, like through the weekends, and you're like, oh, get these stupid messages.
Real estate's very much like, and this is really the only industry I know, but like real estate just seems to always be, it's like a hustle, people are constantly doing something, whether it's, I'm up early doing something or someone's messaging me at 11 p.m. I'm just like, man, go to sleep.
Well, now that the iPhone somewhat of a recent update, like you can schedule out the texts.
Yeah,
so I do that a lot.
Yeah.
So I think I might even schedule one to you recently where I'm like, if I think of it at like 10 o'clock at night, it's like, that's the other thing is like being mindful of like you're interrupting other people. So like on the weekends or like on Sundays or something where I'm like, try not to really bother them. Just schedule that stuff out. And so at least you can do it for other people where you're like, I wouldn't really, because it's not like super that urgent. Like let me just schedule this out, so don't interrupt people's time. Try to be more respectful around that.
Yeah. I find in a team atmosphere, if you message too early, and I try to use that now so that like if I have a thought at 4:30 in the morning, I try to schedule it for 7 or 8 o'clock. Yeah. Because like I don't want the other person to have the anxiety that
Yeah.
they're not getting back to me quick enough.
Right.
Because I felt that before.
Right.
And I don't like it at all. I want my peace, I
Yeah.
want my time. So.
I actually don't usually. I won't look at my messages or anything till about like 9, because that gives me time to wake up, get the kids to school, and if the kids are yelling in the car, or I'm like sort of frustrated about something with them, it's like, and then I have like my time to just sort of like chill, listen to a podcast, or like listen to some music on like the way into where I'm going for my first spot of the day. Is like then it's not really till like 9, or maybe slightly before that. So like good morning to the team or something, but it's like even me, like I just won't like look at anything till like 9. And then I actually leave my phone on, usually do not disturb till like almost 9. So
that's
like
awesome.
Some like vendor or client might call me at like 8:30. I'm like, Todd, it's so early, dude. Don't call me ever before like 8. Like, who does that? I feel like it was rude anyways before 8, but I mean even from 8 to 9, I'm like, I don't know, man, that's still early, dude.
Yeah.
So I just leave it, and I don't get a lot of calls like that, but it's like I pretty much have it on do not disturb till like almost 9 or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And or if I'm expecting that there might be something urgent. But again, it's just like, dude, you gotta have that time, man.
Yeah.
You gotta have time for yourself.
It's important. Going back to real estate, when I was younger, I saw real estate as like the path to freedom. It was, you hear all these wealthy people, they made a lot of money in real estate, and I certainly believe that, but like it was what got me there. And what advice would you maybe give to anybody really, but maybe a dad specifically who's trying to bring in some of that passive income so that he can maybe find his way out of his full-time job at some point? But like, what advice would you give them so that they don't create a job by chasing that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is like, you don't have to be full-time in real estate to be successful at it. And I think a lot of people would be actually better just putting their W-2 income towards like saving or investing in something first than like thinking I have to go full-time to then be able to have the time to do it. And of course, if you have spouse, you have dual incomes, like there might be things you think through or like could be beneficial about one person get your license or starting full-time or something. But aside from that, it's like the education piece. Like with Greg running the RIA and stuff, like over the years we've gotten experiences like, sometimes people invest in their first flip and they'll lose everything they've been saving for like 30 years, dude. Yeah. And you get crushed, or they JV with somebody that like doesn't do the right thing, and or the market changes, and it's like what we're dealing with now is like totally out of our control on stuff, and losing money, not being as profitable as it could be. But it's the education piece, man, of just like really understanding the right education, the right people that sort of know how to help you get there, and just being a little bit careful with like sort of the gurus out there. I think you find people local in your market, local meetups, like really try to vet the people that you're getting education from, and the education that you're paying for. I mean, you can pay for it in books, or you can get smoked on a deal and learn. It's probably better that you just get smoked on the deal a little bit.
Yeah.
But
no one wants that though.
Yeah. The amount of money too that's at risk, and just being, I mean, the education piece is just so important, depending on the strategy that you're doing, and just make sure that it really works today in today's environment, and like the real estate cycle that we're in specifically, because that's just been one of the most disheartening things to see people come in and just lose a lot of money on one of their first deals. And it could be bad contract, could be something sort of out of their control, but it just has to be like the education piece first to like really just understand and make sure you're getting some of the right steps in first. And if you can, joint venture with somebody that's already doing deals, that maybe somebody have a relationship there. You get exposure to it of like doing a flip without, maybe you have some money in the flip, but you're able to like visit the project, see the process, right? Like that sort of on the job training, I think would be really valuable for people if they have this sort of network or sphere of like being able to partner with somebody like that. Or maybe there's somebody that's doing stuff that you pay as a consultant to sort of oversee, the flip that you're doing, and maybe you give them a slice of the pie to help sort of coach you through it. And that sort of thing. But education and just the right partners locally, and then getting out and just talking to other investors, like making the time to get out and meet them, and because they'll have vendors that will help you get through the projects, or like just that whole power team piece of it, right? Be able to rely on people when you get into a challenging environment for an investment deal and figuring it out. But yeah, it's kind of, you got to start where you can start. And if you don't have limited capital and you're like looking at rentals and like, look, I can only buy kind of in like a low income area, it's like, maybe you just do it to get your first one under the belt, and you can always trade up later. So just looking for opportunity based on, when people come to us that are thinking about investing, it's like, okay, how much do you have and how much time do you have? That really dictates how active you should be potentially, or just lend your money for 10% for us for 12 months and
Yeah.
don't even flip.
Yeah.
Right. So not everyone's meant to like, oh, real estate, I don't think, or at least like their expectation of how it goes. So that's usually what we'll tell people is like, depends on how much money might dictate the strategy that they have to invest, and then how much time do you have, or like the education level, like how much time do you really want to put into learning it, or is it just like, hey, if I could just make 10%, or I can just lend you all the money and make 20% on the back end on a flip, like I'm cool with that. Like I kind of can say I'm doing it, like I get like the benefits without like having to.
You can take a photo of the house maybe.
Like the Instagram of their food is like I'm doing it, but it's like you don't have so much of the day-to-day responsibility of like managing it. That's usually where we start on kind of coaching people, because it's just you hate to see them lose a lot of money on the first deal. And you're like, then you never see them again. So they probably just gave up on real estate after that.
I think a lot of people underestimate how much time goes into it as like the owner. Even if you're not swinging the hammer, you're still involved a lot. And I see a lot of people, although obviously the market and other factors can be like the reason for like a loss. But I think desperation is another big factor that comes into play, because people just like, they want to do a deal. And I see people lose money when that happens.
100%. We've seen that so many times. And that's when we talked about like being patient early. It's so tough when you're like, man, I could be buying properties and other people are doing it, but it's like they're probably not making any money. Depending on what they're doing, and it's such a tough piece of it.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any values that you are actively trying to instill in your kids?
Yeah, so obviously, like we go, we're believers, so we go to church all the time, and having the kids sort of involved in sort of just some of the good values of like, what that entails, and sort of upbringing and things that we were raised on, and whether it's like daily structure of how we sort of run the household, and how we encourage them, how you really think about your words and your actions, and like moments of teaching and stuff like that. But I think that there's so much of it's by example. So if I'm like pulling up to somewhere in Tampa and there's like a homeless guy asking for money, and like I pray for him and give him some money, like it doesn't matter like what he uses the money for, right? It's like I've done like my part of it, and the kids getting exposure to that, and I think they start to pick up on when you're at events or with other families, and like how other families interact, and having like showing them, or them getting exposure as they get older. Like I remember growing up, and we would, I think it's now, it's still there. I think used to call it the Bro Bowl. It was a skate park in downtown, and it's still there, part of it. But they used to like be a lot of projects right there, and we would go feed the homeless and stuff. And so that's sort of serving from a young age too. Going and being able to do that, and just see like helping less fortunate, kind of understanding different dynamics on just being grateful for what we have, and just so fortunate for just the stuff that we have as Americans, and that. So I think the serving something is obviously based on the age of the kids we haven't done much of yet, but that's one thing that I know was really key for us growing up, and just like what sort of the Bible teaches us on different things of just being kind to others, like some of those basic things. And then I think also like the education system that they're going through, so that like if we're only going to church once a week or whatever, it's like where are they also getting their education from, whether it's like if they're watching something on YouTube or Netflix, or like being protective a little bit about that education piece. And then like their schooling environment, like and exposure of activities, and like just the role models that they have, and their grandparents, or like my brother's wives, and like that whole like just family dynamics of like what they're also getting exposure to, and like the positivity around that, especially because it's like at such a young age they're grabbing all that stuff. And I know there's some information around just like by the time they're like 8 or something, there's like super developed on like how they're going to be when they're 30, or like just like those early years are just so important. I'm trying to be really thoughtful about how you're interacting with your kids, and mimic, like they're really going to mimic a lot of the parents. I mean, never saw my parents cuss at each other. They never fought in front of us. Like I don't even hardly remember even arguments. Like they would always just do it behind closed doors. That's kind of like in the military. It's like the dudes you didn't like were like the higher ups that would like blast people, and sometimes someone needed to be blasted right in person, and like in front of everybody. But most of it's like you just do that behind closed doors, right? It's like we have those challenges, those arguments, or like just like the disagreements behind closed doors, like not exposing that to the kids, and so it's kind of a lot that goes into it, but just trying to be intentional and mindful, because you're trying to do all this where you're like running businesses, and it's like you got so much more like complex things sometimes to deal with, and like your kids like crying because they didn't get a ketchup packet, dude. from Wendy's, and you're going through it, you're like, oh, I just want to cry sometimes, but yeah, it's like I think it's so much based on like our experiences when we were younger. Like you mentioned, like maybe some stuff that you didn't have, where you're like, I want to like over-index now because I didn't get that sort of piece of like the pie, maybe, or like it wasn't as good as it could have been. Like how can I improve on top of that, or I know that's what I don't want to happen. So I'm like, over-index over this way.
Awesome, man. You touched on kind of drilling someone out behind closed doors, and I feel like if you do that, and this not so much with your kids, but in a business, like if you're the leader and you do that, you've lost all trust. Like if you're drilling someone out in front of a team, and like the rest of the team is just gonna be like, who is this guy? Like I don't want to work for him. And
it's so much when you do it the right way, man, you can really attract great talent. Like we just hired somebody that they got really burnt out. They were like one of the first remote team members that this company hired, another management company in a different state, and just overworked, probably underappreciated. And it's like we just operate so different. We're just like, maybe it's a little bit due to the size of the company being slightly different, but it's like when you do it right, man, people just, it's so like, I think one advantage that we have against like either bigger companies or like just to be really in tune with where people are at today and our sort of age dynamics, where like most of my employees are probably somewhere close to my age range, like I don't know, 25, 35, somewhere in there probably. And it's such a leg up when you realize like what they're looking for, how they kind of want to be treated, and some of it's like those golden rules. But yeah, it's like just the damage that can do.
Yeah, it really can.
And around having the sort of hot temper, and again, knowing that if you're like that, building in people to handle those conversations, or like, all right, I just need to step away. Or like I'm like really relaxed and like don't really get overworked around a lot of things. Never like lash out on people. So I'm like sort of just built a certain way where it's like easier for me to do that. But if it's not, then it's like just realizing like how do you build in some stuff where like you don't put yourself in the position to like just rip someone's head off.
I was thinking this morning to kind of bring that back to family. So I have to drive. We moved to Parrish recently.
Oh yeah.
And I got to drive my daughter. Some days it's 20 minutes, some days it's 35 minutes to daycare. And I got to drive on I-75 south, and like between construction and just all the traffic.
Dude, traffic's brutal in the evenings too, for sure, coming down south.
Yeah. But man, I get frustrated. Like I am not the type of person who like road rage can take over for me. And this morning I was actually thinking about it, and like I started to say some stuff, and not that I was like, my daughter is not even 2, but she started to pick things up for sure.
Sometimes they'll say something like, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that word." How would you do that?
And I try to keep the color out of my language.
Yeah.
But I found myself getting angry because of the traffic, and I just started, whatever I was saying, it wasn't anything, again, nothing colorful, but I was getting mad. Like, what the hell are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, my daughter's seeing this every single day. Yeah. And I was like, I just had a moment. I was like, I don't want my daughter to find or see anger or speaking loudly as like normal. Yeah. So like it really just hit me this morning. It was like, I got to stop doing that, because I don't want her to, I don't want that to be a normal action for her, because she sees me doing it every day. Right.
And it's like the atmosphere. It's like, sometimes I'll play like certain music because like I want it to like be, put me in a certain mood, right? And so that's kind of like when I'm thinking about, sometimes I would get stressed about like, okay, I might be late for the run of the kids, because it might be the structure of something I'm doing that morning, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be this way. And kind of that, at least for that simple example, like just the music that I'm listening to, or there's just things that I start to do where I'm like, okay, I want to be in a more like sort of level head here, and like, or I'm sort of embarrassed that I kind of did that. Like, how do I kind of go through emotions of like next time being a little bit, so is it something around schedule, or like, why is that a trigger point for me? Like this sort of thing. And I'm the same way, like stupid drivers, bro. Like, just drive me off
every other driver's stupid.
And then sometimes I think about like, the purpose of like, okay, maybe this person drove slow, so I didn't get through that light because like there was a car accident waiting for me that I didn't get in because like this happened. So like in that word perspective has just been big for me lately on just, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
It's like, and which is tough, but it's like just those small things have really helped because we do the same things with the kids. Like, I have to have mine and seats on both sides of the car, and there's a gap in the middle because if you put the car seats together, they're just gonna be pulling each other's hair, and you're always dealing with stuff. So you find some ways, maybe distraction techniques, like things that they're doing that they're not maybe paying as much attention to, but it's tough, man. Yeah, you really start to realize what can I change? Like maybe next time I don't do it the same way.
Yeah.
But it's just a growth. It's just a growth thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
We're all doing it. You're doing a good job as a dad. I'm sure it's better than most.
I hope so. All right, so with business, I'm sure you have them. I know we have KPIs. I'm sure you're tracking vacancy rates, rent coming in, stuff like that. Do you have anything with your family? Are you tracking anything? Do you have any KPIs that you monitor to make sure that you're fulfilling your purposes as a husband, a dad?
Yeah, there's not like specifically actually like that, which is a good thing maybe to spend some extra time thinking on. But like we got away from it a little bit. We would try to schedule or have scheduled like date nights away from the kids, once or twice a month, whatever. Where it's just
the hardest one to keep track of.
Hire a babysitter, come and go. And then what's helped a little bit is sort of Nova, now that she has like sort of homework in kindergarten, is reading books and stuff. So I'll use that as an opportunity, like in the evening, to sort of have some consistency schedule with the kids, and then sort of pray before bed. It's sort of like whole routine, and looking for those points of just being. I may not be tracking it hard, but I know I can tie progress to like actually doing something more consistent, more routinely. That's sort of having like a positive effect, or like because she really enjoys this part of like this learning tool that's on the iPad for her school, then like making the homework sort of a fun environment for them to sort of learn these little things. So not like hard tracking anything, but I have some just like on my goal board, I would say like personal goals throughout the year, where it's like some of that ties into something, but I'm not tracking anything super in depth. But I have a fairly good pulse on some of that stuff where like, okay, I know I'm making like forward progress and being more consistent with this or that, and then just like quiet time, at the house. Like now I bought a desk for a little certain space in the house. I'm kind of just more consistent about like doing stuff when I'm sitting there before I get up, before I go see the kids.
Yeah.
Like just kind of like, just things that I want to be journaling or just like listening to, or maybe it's just stretching for a little bit.
Yeah.
So being more consistent about some of that stuff that like translates to the family, and but nothing like hard set.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fine, but I think being consistent is that's the biggest thing. That's why we track things, so we're staying consistent. But yeah, the date nights, that seems to be the easiest thing to put on the back burner.
Yeah. It's always like so good when you're able to do them, but it's one of the tougher things to do. And but yeah, there's a lot of good things that I'm thinking about that would be beneficial to keep track of a little bit more, and drill in on, and making it fun for the kids. I think too, there's an easy way to sort of gamify stuff for the kids too as they get older on good habits and things that we want to do as a family and whatnot. And we know what the resource doing this support circle. Like we're very, very fortunate to have all my family local, my parents. So like when I need someone to babysit or something, like there's a lot of flexibility there. So it's just like having that support circle around you, so you can have time to really devote to like making those moments with the family most important and actually happening.
Yeah. As we touched on earlier, you obviously stay fit, look great. What importance does that have to you, staying in shape?
Yeah, so it's funny actually. I used to lift so much in high school. I played soccer. It was like my sport growing up, and like all the football coaches were like, you're gonna come play football. If everyone runs over the soccer season, dude, like by 2 months or something. And so like I'd been lifting from very early on, and I think it was because like family's naturally skinny, so I'm like 6 feet tall, and so I was just like super skinny. So like people would like every once in a while would comment on it, like I'm just like tired of being called skinny here and there. So it was like. It wasn't like I got like super bullied about it, but it was just like it's
a joke.
Like, it kind of
doesn't go away.
All your shirts just feel like they fit. So like that's just been like, and then once I got in the military and I had like some money, like buy protein, like just go through. And now it's just like maintaining, and And obviously there's a confidence piece of it,
Yeah.
like, but then now as like a dad, I go to like all these dad parties and I'm like, dude, I'm like, like, does anybody here lift at all, dude? And so it just kind of like, I don't know, it makes me feel good. Like the biggest dad, sometimes I'll post that like biggest dad on the block and I'm just like joking, but it's like, when you start these habits, now I can just maintain, and like I still like healthier and probably look better than like most people in my gym, or like they don't have, you maybe have a crazy schedule or something, but it's like now you can just maintain.
Sure.
And I've like decreased the pressure over time on like my expectations of myself for tracking like the all the food, like macros and like all this other stuff, right? And I just like I kind of know my body at this point. I started just doing like a quick smoothie in the morning and then just a meal at night for the most part. So it's kind of like I just don't eat all day, and I guess people call that intermittent fasting or whatever they want, but it's just like I just love it now.
Sure.
And so that's helped me trim up a lot this year.
Nice.
And so it's just a huge piece of it. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like sort of how I get away from business during the week is just like doing that. And so,
clear your
but
head.
just having like a little bit of flexibility, make sure that the schedule and the length of workouts, all that sort of stuff is like built around my schedule. Like when I leave here, because we blocked off most of the day, it's like, okay, I'll probably leave here. I'm actually really close to the gym, so I might just go hit something. So now I don't have to do it at night, and I can spend more time with the kids at night. Like last night, I didn't go at night, and I did the inflatable in the backyard. We have some that we own, and so I just did a big blow up, and they were just like playing around. So like that's that stuff where it's like, oh, I can get a quick something in during the day, but I feel like I got it done, but now I can spend more time with the kids at night. And then I also like want to be able to be in good health when they're like running around and stuff. And I think that's one thing that's really cool about where we're headed as society is like all the improvements we're making in health and like how potentially living longer and just like the benefits of all that stuff. And that's stuff too that's like you're translating to your kids on them having some sort of health idea about fitness or just eating healthier, just like an understanding around that. So it's such a big piece. And then just being comfortable with your self-esteem, right? Like you want to look good, dude.
It means a lot.
You want to be sexy for your wife, dude.
Yeah.
So they're still digging you after 10 years.
Yeah, right. There's a ton of benefits. Being sexy to your wife is definitely one of them.
We won't go into detail, but
it's good. We'll keep it PG.
Yeah.
Down the road when your kids look back, what do you want them to say about you?
It's good, baby. I haven't like written. I think I did that a really long time. Sort of where you write your own obituary or something.
Sure.
But that'd be interesting to revisit. But I think like I mentioned, I'm just very fortunate with my dad on what he's, how he raised us and how we've all sort of turned out, and you go through rocky patches and stuff. But just like the sort of family aspect that we have is pretty cool. And I was telling my dad the other day, we're so fortunate. Like the stuff we like bicker about as a family it's always ridiculous at some point. Like when you think about stuff that other people go through, like really have some rough stuff that people go through, and like just that the importance of family is obviously a big piece. The faith is probably even bigger than that. That just has like directed so much of what we've done through our lives and how we've interacted and how we perceive the world, how we interact with other people, how we deal with situations that are tough. Is like whether someone's like believes in something or not. Like I think somebody believing in something out there versus nothing is better long term on how they interact with everything. So like the two biggest things would be like the faith in the family and just getting to understand like your real purpose around here and just leaving people better that they've met you, or like better off after they met you than before. Their sort of interactions and stuff, but how you deal with, if you don't take care of yourself and sort of how you handle stuff in your sort of belief system, you can't be a positive impact on other people, and you can't receive blessings with a sort of closed fist. So like when we donate to charity or do different things, like the giving aspect is so important too, on whether it's your time or your talents or whatever you're giving back to local things, like supporting other people when you've been blessed. Even if it's not like a lot of money, like there's stuff where we, at one point when we were just starting out, somebody was getting married and didn't have any furniture, and I spent like half. I didn't have a lot. It was like half of it was in my bank account at the time to like help out my wife's friend in the DR. Wow. And it's just like, we need it, and I don't know, we're in a better position than them. We need to help. And so I think that would be some of the big things of what I would say. But yeah, faith drives so much of what we do, and then just like we're just super blessed with our family to just sort of have a good grounding of like, what we think is like an ideal place to grow, an environment to grow up in.
That's awesome. All right, last question. I know I've taken a lot of your time today.
Oh, you good? Got me the energy drinks. I'm good.
Say you're approached by a dad. He's feeling stretched thin between, fulfilling business purposes and trying to be their first family. What advice would you have for him?
Prayer always works, but if somebody's like doesn't really think that's a thing or whatever, you have to, like, especially in leadership positions, like, or you have to have people pouring into you.
Yeah.
So whether it's like a business group or like something where like you're going deeper than like surface level, like the one group I'm in, like if people are having like marriage problems or like, like some, like the stuff you don't tell anybody, like we'll talk about closed confidential circle. That's kind of like an environment where you need to try to find some level of that to let you know, like, everybody struggles with the same stuff or like is going through seasons. Like in our investor groups, it's like, it's just how willing somebody's everyone's getting kicked in the teeth. It's just how willing they are to like let people know they're getting kicked in the teeth right now. And so they're not alone, but having some sort of support circle, some sort of input, whether it's, stuff they're listening to, the books, or it's like actively people pouring into to their lives to like free them up, especially as like CEOs, like you're always, or founders, you're like always like directing energy out into your teams and to other people, but it's like you need that happening to you, whether it's from other business leaders or like just some sort of mentor or just an old friend that's sort of like maybe older than you that can pour in and just encourage when you're kind of just going through a rough patch or just in general. Sort of maintain that baseline of like healthy thinking.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think a lot of people when they're going through, issues, they're struggling with something, they basically crumble from the inside because they don't seek that counsel or they just don't share with anybody and they start to those issues that they're dealing with start to snowball instead of getting the input to help them unlock whatever's going to help them.
That's why like sometimes I'll be more vulnerable or like just posting stuff on social media where it's like just like more words of encouragement, or like as I do that, I know naturally other people are going to be like more bold to encourage or like to put stuff out there. So it kind of like, you may never know, but I know that it rubs off on other people because that's sort of like other people have rubbed off on me, and just letting people know like we're all going through different stuff, or the ups and downs are happen to everybody. Yeah. Not to stay siloed.
Yeah, it's huge. All right, dude. I appreciate your time, man. Where can people find you? Where can they reach out, learn about your business?
Yeah, so on any of the socials, my name, Jeremy Kloter, is the only one with it. So if they just even search me on Google, it'll pull me up on everything. So mostly Facebook and Instagram, but from the business piece of it, outfastpropertymanagement.com, and they'll find me pretty easy on any of those.
Yeah. All right, dude.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.